Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Monday All Weekend live show. We are live.
What's good, everybody?
How are you
It's
guys?
Back.
Monday. It's
We're back.
Labor Day.
It's Labor
It
Day.
is Labor Day. Yeah.
Yeah, happy
This is
Labor Day to
actually,
everybody.
one thing. I almost want to pose this later if they end up showing up, like Nikita or
hmm
Joanna.
Some of the folks who were on here
Some of the
last week.
folks that's been on a couple times recently. I want to see if they in Australia and Canada have a Labor Day or if that's an American thing. Do you know?
Yeah.
I don't. I don't have the answer to that question.
Most likely it's probably just an American thing.
You think?
That's not to say
Yeah.
they don't have a similar holiday, some sort of
Right.
something.
I mean,
But
everybody's got something, a little
everybody's got
something.
something. I don't know if it's called a Labor Day.
Right, right, right.
But for this live stream for this Monday all weekend, we have a couple topics, and I'm just going to run through them really quick here at the beginning.
Okay.
We're going to be talking about the Andy returning for Toy Story 5 controversy.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about the some of the stuff going on in Venice with the Venice Film Festival and Woody Allen and his new feature film, some of the
Mhm.
protests and things that are going on there. And
Right.
then we are going to talk a little bit at the end about the continuing SAG-AFTRA strike and some of the
Mhm.
comments being made in
Continuing.
regards to that and
Right.
It's
why
still
it's still
going.
going.
Been going since the beginning of the summer,
Didn't
like
that article say
March.
53 days?
Yeah. I thought you were going to say been going since the beginning. And I was about to say you're not wrong.
I mean, it's
It
been a
has
minute.
been
When did
going.
they actually start
Yeah,
striking? Do we know?
53 days.
Well, no, hold on.
Uh,
The writer's strike has been going on for over 100 days, right?
has it really? Isn't that who we're talking about? SAG-AFTRA? Isn't it the Writers Guild?
I thought the actors have been on strike for 50 something days. Because ultimately, I
Oh,
mean, 53 days is only a month and a
No.
half, you
mm,
know?
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So
They've been going on for
It's
a
gotta
long
be.
time.
I think the writer's strike has been going on for over 100 days.
hmm
But either way, it's one of the main one of the big unions in Hollywood
Yeah.
that are over the strike. Obviously, SAG. A couple of these unions, I bet you they're you know okay to give a teaser and not
hmm
to get too deep into this yet. I feel like they're accusing the studios of not meeting with them to end the strike, but I think like they love the strike because
Oh, yeah.
nobody knew the names of these unions. They had zero popularity in the real world until these strikes, and now everybody knows the name of these strikes. It's kind of like Anthony Fauci, you know? He
Yeah. Well, I would say if you're familiar with any sort of writing, producing TV or books, yeah, you know SAG-AFTRA. That's pretty known.
You knew about that?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well,
You're up on your union knowledge?
yeah, writers guilds and everything. Yeah,
Yeah. I
Wow.
I
they've
I
been
I
don't know
around
if
never
for a
those
was
long
unaware.
time.
I know they have. I'm just saying, I don't think the common person knows who these people
Yeah,
are
and you're
or these
probably right.
are.
You're probably right,
And
but
I think they love that people know who they are now.
well, they had a similar thing happen back in 2008,
Mhm.
and this one I think has gone on for much longer than that one.
Right.
So
Much
yeah,
longer. I think this one's hitting records.
absolutely. Well, let's drop in on the first topic.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, the Toy Story
Toy Story
5.
5.
Yeah.
Okay, so Toy Story 5 key characters potential return faces fan backlash. So,
mhm.
you want to summarize this, Wyatt?
Yeah, so basically, Disney's been talking about having Andy, fan favorite Andy, return for Toy Story 5. He
Right.
I
was last seen in Toy Story 3 when he drove away with that epic, sad
mhm.
ending of the movie that
Yeah.
was kind of bittersweet and that everybody loved.
Oh, it was more than epic and sad. It
One of the best
was
endings.
catastrophic to the
Mm,
emotions of
Yeah.
the world, of my generation,
mhm.
right?
I think I think that was to be honest, that was one of the last real good sequel, you know, closers that we've had in, I
Yeah.
guess, almost a decade.
Yeah, a
Mhm.
long time.
Passed the torch, and it felt good. It didn't feel forced, it didn't feel fake, it didn't feel like they were just creating a sequel for
Mhm.
a sequel. It felt like there
No.
was an ending to a era and a story
And I
Yes.
that
remember yeah, I
worked.
remember that time that there were a lot of similar, like, trilogy ending things or sequel end like, that were closing off stories that people really appreciated and enjoyed, and Toy Story was one of those, and so when Toy Story 4 came out, I think a lot of people were a bit miffed, where
Mhm.
it was like, "Are you guys are still trying to make money off of this? Is that really?" That's when people I
Right.
think that's when people started being like, you guys are just trying to make money
Yeah,
off of Toy
yeah.
Story now. You ended the story, let's be done. Make some shorts about the characters having a good time and having
Some holiday
fun,
specials,
some holiday
like
specials.
Shrek knew it was up.
Yeah, but they didn't need to make a 4th movie, and the fact that they're planning on making a 5th movie is
Right.
Come
bad, and the
on.
fact that they're thinking about bringing back Andy and having him have a family, it's like, well, he gave all his toys away to another person. He donated them to another
Yeah.
person so that they could
Now
have them. So what? Are they just gonna abandon who they're with and
Yes.
find
now
his
And
I
kids?
could if
probably. Probably.
now if there was not a 3rd movie or, like, a close like they did in the 3rd Toy Story,
Mm,
then I could accept a closing or a Andy story where he did have kids and he finds up in the
yeah.
attic, the toys of his childhood and kinda gives it to one of his kids. That would work, but it doesn't work in what they've created so far
No.
with the passing on the torch to somebody else type
Mhm.
thing.
Well,
And the issue is each movie was about something else.
yeah.
Um, it was like, what happens when, you're the favorite toy that gets replaced?
Right.
New favorite toy. And then the second one is,
What
um
happens when you're parted from your player?
well, it's like
Right.
yeah, what happens when you're also, like, a collectible,
Right.
you
Mhm.
know? And there's more value in you being in a box than being played with. And then
Or like what's more important to you? Being famous or having purpose, you know?
right, yeah, and then the last one is kinda like, what happens when the the kid grows up? Where do you
Mhm.
go?
Yeah.
What do you do? And all of these were interesting stories, and then I think the 4th one was, like, about antiques and about, what does it really mean to be, like, alive and, like, what a toy is.
So we're getting too
Trying
meta.
like, starting to get kinda meta, starting to stretch it and
With
everything.
movie number 4, and I feel like those are concepts that we could have addressed in movie number 1, but they chose
Mhm.
not to, so we can't address them in movie number 4,
We
right?
don't need to.
No.
No.
Those concepts don't need to be addressed.
Mm-mm.
Uh
Not for Toy Story.
Yeah, and I even Toy Story 2 was kinda like, what is it? Yeah, there was like a subplot of, not being unique and how Buzz isn't unique. He's just one of very,
Mhm.
very many, but Woody's unique,
Mhm.
you know?
Well,
Yeah.
look, think about
And
Andy's story, like the song "When Somebody Loves You," you know? Freaking it's a story about finding love and purpose
Mhm.
and care.
Andy? You mean Jesse?
Jesse,
Jesse.
yeah.
Yeah, that was Jesse's.
Jesse's story
Mhm.
with that little girl. Man,
Yeah.
that they're
Man,
dealing with
it
some
makes me
deep
wanna choke
concepts.
up.
Deep
I know.
conversations and deep
Yeah.
topics, and so it feels like all of that is being all of those things that we loved and all of those concepts that we grew up on that made us laugh and cry and that we enjoyed are almost being stepped on by Disney's need to make money
Yeah.
and pretend that there's going to be a charming, heartwarming story underneath this.
And there just won't be. Now, I
Mm-mm.
do have, a solution that I think Disney should start implementing, And I think
Mhm.
Pixar and everybody should start implementing. I think DreamWorks could do this with Shrek, and nobody seems to be doing this. All right, Ryan Reynolds is doing it a tiny bit with
Okay.
Mhm.
Deadpool. You need to make your three awesome movies, right?
Mhm.
Your three awesome movies for Shrek. I think Shrek the Fourth was just as good.
Mhm.
I
It
think
is.
it stays. So you got four awesome Shrek movies. I think what needs to happen is instead of them just resurrecting to try to make a blockbuster, what they really need to do is they need to say, okay, we've tucked it in bed. Now we play the
Mhm.
long game. There is a fan cult culture around these stories, like
Yeah.
Toy Story. Freaking start a YouTube channel and do mini cartoons like they kind of did with the Clone Wars, except that went on broadcast,
Yeah.
but do it on a YouTube channel and start selling products or showing, little mini stories for the younger kids, for like the real young
Mhm.
kids, like 3, 4, 5, those kind of age ranges,
Yeah.
and create something that's like, all right, here, this is a beloved, 3 movie franchise. Now what we're doing is we're elaborating on it. We're giving it life. We're creating characters, a personality, on this interactive YouTube channel for this story, but we're not going to say we're just going to keep making these blockbuster movies and add to the lore of this
Yeah.
original perfect trilogy,
It's interesting to kind of ask the question too, though. So the first Toy Story was our generation, or even maybe the generation before us, to
Hmm.
where are is it has it been too long of a time to where you know our kids uh are they going to enjoy a Toy Story movie because they didn't grow up with it? I think
No, I
that's
think
why.
they can. It's
You
all on
think
Disney
so?
Plus right now. You can just show it to them.
Well, yeah, but so like the third movie where Andy kind of went off to college, that I think that resonated with a lot of people because the people who were watching the first movie were going off to college when that movie
Yeah.
came out.
Oh, so
It was
there's
like,
time
I
investment.
am Andy,
It's
yeah.
timely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the new generation, if they're just watching a fifth adaptation of these characters, are they going to be as invested also?
Yeah.
And is a full-length movie going to be something that they can, you know, get into? I mean,
Yeah, Disney
they
wants the money and the magic of the first 3, but they're just not gonna get it, right?
I
Yeah.
I I mean, we can ask the question of like, well, you could argue the same thing for like Mario. Mario's an old game, but yet Mario blew up this year and became
Mhm.
It's
a
not the same.
billion-dollar movie to where you could argue that too. So we don't know if a fifth movie would work or
Well,
not.
I think it's more about the controversy is more about the fact that they're bringing back Andy, and even though he had such a satisfying ending to the story, whether people agree with the ending, it doesn't feel right to kind of retroactively reintroduce him to the story because the ending was about passing on uh something that you love to
Mhm.
somebody who will love it just as much. And though it wasn't his kids, it was somebody else. It was another
Right.
kid. It was special.
Yeah.
So I think that's where people are having an issue. Were there tweets, people tweeting in that
Right, there
article,
were,
Joe?
there were, yeah. Let me go
Yeah,
down
what
to
are people
those.
saying? Censor it,
So,
obviously. If
uh, censor it. Let's see. So, uh, yeah, this person just says, "What's the point of Toy Story? What's the point of the ending of Toy Story 3?" When they retweeted this one thing that says,
Mhm.
uh, Andy will reportedly return in Toy Story 5.
Yeah,
His new family will be integral to the plot. So he looks like he's the dad.
yeah,
He's the dad of this new family, right? So I guess we'll just see what that looks like. And that's the only tweet. Let's see. Oh, here's another one. So we're just dunking to the
dunking on the
dunking on the
message.
message. Of Toy Story 3, huh? Cool, cool. I love capitalism interfering with art. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there are a lot more tweets of people that are just referring to Toy Story 3. Should have left it alone after Toy Story 3. Yeah,
Mhm.
everyone agrees. Toy Story 3 was a good ending for the first two movies.
Yeah.
And Toy Story 4 was predominantly ignored, I think. And
Mhm.
Toy Story 5 is going to be even more ignored. If you thought Indiana Jones 5 was rough, wait until
Bro.
Toy Story 5, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so that's all she wrote. I mean, everyone, we're all in agreement. Everybody online is in agreement on this. We're not
Mhm.
asking for this movie, and I don't think we're going to see a lot of pushback. I don't think there's going to be a lot of diehard Toy Story fans online being like, "Leave Disney alone. They have every right and the real fans, the real true fans, want a
Mhm.
Toy Story 5. No, they don't. In the
Yeah.
same way they didn't want Buzz Lightyear. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there it
Agreed.
is. There it is. And let's
Um,
let's move on to something else.
yeah. What weren't you talking about? There's more news coming out with the strike and it's still going on.
Right. So the news for the strike is basically we kind of teased at it
Yeah,
earlier.
teased it somewhat.
So deliberate efforts to prolong the strike. Studios blasted by SAG chief negotiator for refusing talks. I believe this is a quote that's down here. The AMPTP. What was that again?
Um,
The Associated. No.
it's the Alliance of Motion Pictures and Television Producers.
Okay.
Yes.
Um, referring to them, the
Yeah.
spokesperson, I believe this is what they said, or this is a summary of what they said. The only way a strike is resolved is through the parties talking. Their refusal to even talk with us seems like a deliberate effort to prolong the strike and inflict maximum pain. Some economists are estimating approximately 5 billion in economic losses as a result, or perhaps their end game is one among uh, or perhaps their end game is, as one among the studio's executive told a news outlet, to let the strike drag on, quote, drag on until union members start losing their apartments and losing their houses.
Yeah, so this is from the National Executive Director of SAG-AFTRA, Crabtree, Ireland.
That's a
Interesting
hilarious.
name.
That sounds like a fake name.
It does sound
So
like a fake name, but the the quote "drag on until union members start losing their apartments and losing their houses." Bro.
That's dark.
that
That's real
we
dark.
were talking about this this week because um our roommate, one of our roommates, John Mark,
Mm,
he's part of a union with he works at the train yard, and then also we were discussing it with another gentleman who's in the union, and he does sheet metal, which is a little bit
mhm.
different than a union for studios. But the conversation we kind of had was, well, for the train yard, they strike for all of like 5 minutes because without trains, there would be no supplies anywhere.
There'd be
Yeah.
an
Like,
economic collapse in a couple hours.
yes,
Mhm.
I think so. The studios, there's things like YouTube, there's other forms of entertainment we have right now to
Luxury
where
market.
people are like, well, do we really need these big
Mhm.
studio, big Hollywood movies? I mean, we
Mhm.
want them. They're fun to go see them at the theater, but do we need them right now?
Well,
And
I don't know. This is why I really have never, and there's a lot of layers to this, and this kind of digs deep. I've never been a big advocate for film school.
Mm.
Reason why is all my friends that went to film school um, were fully bought into this idea of getting a part of the Hollywood system. And I've known quite a few people that's worked on many a Marvel movie, many a Fast and Furious movie, but they're just a cog in the wheel, a part of these unions, holding a light or setting up something and then
Mm.
leaving for the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes they might be doing something cool like changing the lenses for the DP, but ultimately they're just kind of peons, and you're treated as such. The problem with that is from film school all the way to the industry, you're taught the way you make money making movies is not by building something like an audience for yourself. It's rather get these studios who owns all the money to pay you, right? And be a
Mhm.
part of
Yeah.
their projects. That is so in 2023 and future, that's such a terrible method because the people that are building an audience are making more money and are happier and having more fulfilled careers with very similar, if not better, opportunities as people
Yeah.
that are in the
More
union.
freedom.
A lot
More
more
freedom
freedom,
as well.
a lot more freedom, and actually name recognition, right?
Mhm.
As opposed to just being a peon where you hand someone a lens and that's your whole job.
Yeah.
So, uh, look, it's cool to say you rubbed shoulders with Robert Downey Jr., but who knows? Maybe in 15, 20 years, we're doing a podcast with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You
So
never know.
you never know. And so it doesn't really, there's all roads don't lead the same way anymore. So, with all that said, this idea of just let this thing go on until people start losing all their stuff. You're right. They do have that control because they've been given that control, and they've had over a decade. Yeah. I mean, honestly, there's these conversations were happening back in 2009, 2010 when I was finishing up high school, and I remember having these conversations about the movie industry. These people already have had over a decade to see the industry for what it is and to say I don't want to be a part of that because there's
Yeah.
better options, you know. And a lot of people just said no or ignored it, and so now there's a lot of world of hurt if studios aren't willing to, meet them where they're at because yeah.
If my question is if they go this far,
Mhm.
if they go so far as to, people start not being able to pay for stuff,
Strike end.
when does when do the strikers cave? When are
When
they
there's
like, all right, yeah, maybe, this isn't going to work out? Because almost any time people strike, there's usually a resolution that's somewhat mutually beneficial for both parties.
That's
Yeah.
not the case
Um,
for every time.
not
Mutually beneficial.
what I'm talking about
Well,
nowadays that's almost always the case. For if you lose all of your employees, that's not good for the employees and it's not good for you. And so we
Mhm.
rarely see that happen when there's strikes. Usually there's some sort of something that happens where it's like, all right, we got a little bit of what we want, they got a little bit of what they want, or we got everything we wanted. Um, it would be really interesting to see this just be like, "Oh, no, we're perfectly willing to let everybody quit, to
yeah.
lose
The
everybody,
the
and
writers,
all
yes.
the writers, and just find new people." It would blow my mind if the strikers just gave up and they're like, "Well, we need to figure out other ways to pay for our family, our homes and our businesses and families and everything like that."
Well, I'll
Uh,
say the union reps get paid, so
mhm.
they're perfectly fine with this
Yeah.
continuing. Um, it's in fact it's part of their job. They probably haven't seen action like this in years,
Yeah.
so they are fine with it. It's the people that are part of the union. So the question I have is, can you exit your union and go work at a studio not a part of a union? That's the
I think
question.
so.
Probably not.
Probably. Yeah, you probably can.
You think
Well,
so?
it's so
Yeah.
there's so much red tape in Hollywood. Do studios allow for like writers, like you might say, to enter a studio and get a job and not be in a union? Is that even possible in
I
Hollywood?
I think if all of your writers are on strike, then maybe. Or if you're willing to lose all of your writers, then maybe.
It's pretty clear.
Um,
Unions, as long as you're in a union, they'll let this strike last for 3 years,
mhm.
and the unions don't care because they make money.
Yeah.
All they want is to win this issue. And this is what you were saying earlier about is there going to be a winner or loser? When it comes to writers, there's only a loser for the writers because the big part of this is AI. The
Yeah.
studios have what they need, right?
Hmm.
And they can
Yeah.
hire a few independent writers to spice up what the AI does for them.
Mhm.
So they don't need all these writers. No, they need
Yeah.
actors. They need graphic artists, like if like with Marvel's stuff. Um, but they don't need these writers. They can just be unemployed and lose their house.
I would agree that regardless of what ends up happening and what ends up being signed, um, especially according, with AI, the producers and executives are going to find a way to use AI no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Well, too, I mean, movies are still coming out. It's not like they are probably losing money because of it, because
Mm.
actors are not promoting the films. The actors aren't being
Yeah.
out there promoting stuff, but their movies still are coming out. I mean, like next weekend, Haunting in Venice is coming out, which is a pretty decent sized movie. It's not huge, but it's coming out next weekend, and
Right.
I haven't heard any advertisements except for just the commercials there that the studio's paying for, going
Yeah.
out. So the
Mhm.
studio's still making a little bit of money. The actors and union people are not.
Well, these
Mhm.
are test subjects. These movies, and they're going to keep releasing them until they see a drop in numbers, which there probably will be.
Yeah.
It's completely dependent on the audience if we're going to see a drop in numbers. We didn't see a drop in numbers with Barbie and Oppenheimer, and they're like, okay,
No.
so and movies subsequently, all right. So Equalizer 3 did pretty well, right?
Mhm.
So they're just going to keep releasing these movies slowly as test subjects until they start to see it not working. Then
Well,
they'll
and
delay
I think the
everything.
problem is that um, the movies are coming out, but what happens when we get to the point where we've gone several months without writers and actors, and we start to hit a lull in movies coming out or
Hmm.
movies being produced, because we're gonna have movies coming out for the next 2 years,
Right.
whether they're being promoted or not, and it's what happens in 4 years, 5 years, when we start to see, like, 2 years of no movies. It's like,
Yeah.
oh well, there was a strike that happened that went on for a year and a half. You know?
And now we have to suffer from it. But that's when YouTube creators rise up and we entertain the
Mhm.
world. You know what
Yeah,
I'm
there it
saying?
is.
There it
Yeah.
is.
I mean, it's being people all over are being hit with this and they're suffering because like even
Well, I
something.
wouldn't call it suffering yet.
Well, let me
They
let me
don't
finish what I was gonna say.
don't seem to be
Yeah,
suffering
there's
quite
some
yet.
there's some people suffering from all around, like The Chosen, where they had to even hold production for a little bit
Mm.
because of this strike stuff where they're not even really involved, and Angel Studios isn't one of the big names and part of this, the whole strike reasoning, but yet stuff like that is still being
It's still
halted
affecting
because of
them,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I actually think, yeah, you can submit a exception to these unions and basically be left out of of the strike, which is what the
Mhm.
Chosen did. And I actually think Neon did it with the new Ferrari movie
Yeah.
because Adam Driver was talking about Ferrari
Oh,
and the company Neon recently. I could be
interesting.
mistaken, but I think they might have gotten an exception because they're an indie film company by
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
union. So I think Adam Driver's free to talk about Ferrari. So yeah,
Yeah.
it maybe the indie market rises up and
Mm.
we just
And, I think as we're gonna talk about next, the foreign market is probably gonna rise up as well.
right.
Our next topic is, stuff that is going on in, um, Venice. My
Yeah,
phone is going off.
it's all right. So let me read this headline. Woody Allen's Coup de Chance,
Coup de chance.
Coup de Chance
Mhm.
warmly embraced inside Venice premiere while protested outside. All
Yeah.
right. So give us a synopsis of what happened here.
So we don't have to go into too much detail. There's lots of stuff thrown out in this article that we don't have to read, and well, that technically I don't think we could say on YouTube certain words and whatnot. But
Mhm.
Woody Allen released this new movie at the Venice Film Festival. It got, a huge standing ovation. People really liked it. If you don't know Woody Allen, he's famous for lots and lots and lots of romance dramas, Midnight in Paris, movies like that.
Mhm.
Um, and so like relationship. romance movies.
Right.
Um, been in the industry for a long time. And he was Me Too'd during the big Me Too movement with, quite a few allegations against him. And uh, was, I guess, sort of blacklisted from Hollywood productions and made his way overseas to start doing some stuff over there. So this movie has no American release. So a bunch of people started protesting outside, chanting things, taking off their shirts. Um, it was a weird lineup. The pictures were not PG and not PG-13 either.
Oh, nice.
And just saying, they're going on about the allegations and the assault
Mhm.
and things like that, and it was more about like how could the Venice Film Festival be allowing these directors in, you know, to promote their movies and show their movies.
So I guess the question for us is
Yeah.
partly, why would they? Do they not think it's real? Is
Um,
is is this Me Too thing seen by the rest of the world as a American woke cultural movement
I
that
think
is
that's
not built on
absolutely
facts?
Maybe.
possible. I think that's absolutely possible, and I think that um, the other word we have to take into consideration here is allegations. These
Yeah.
are all allegations. There's no charges.
Well,
There's
there are a
no.
handful of proven in court cases during the Me Too movement.
Yes, there are, but
This
for
is
the
not one,
directors the directors that are here, there are only allegations.
right?
Um, and I think as far as the court of public opinion goes over there, I think it's probably different than over here.
Well, they gave him a standing ovation. They
Hmm.
loved
Mm.
it. They love his movies. I believe you said also who was another director that was there?
I'm not sure.
Was
I know
it
that
David Fincher?
David
David
Fincher
Fincher.
had a movie. I don't think he's one of the controversial directors, but
No.
he did have a movie that released, The Killer, with Michael Fassbender, which looks really awesome.
Mhm.
It looks really cool,
So,
and I want
do
to
you
see it.
think? So, I guess the thing you presented to us was kind of like, are we just going to see people that kind of get pushed out of Hollywood just go to these other markets and
I mean,
still
they're
do
seeing
their work?
success. They're seeing
Right.
success. Woody Allen's seeing success. Johnny Depp saw success.
Hmm.
I mean,
Um,
there's always, I would say in the past 15 years or 10 years maybe, there has been a big success with our generation, like in the Korean, um, you know, anime space is very popular. Like where you see a lot of like HBO and Netflix
mhm,
playing a lot of that stuff now, especially like
yeah,
Netflix has a lot of Korean films on their platform because Americans are starting to watch that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Right.
And yes, I do think that you know, if the next Dune doesn't come out this year because of
It's not.
pushback, because of, well, it's not, but I'm saying if they don't because of uh the strike, then the next, Parasite 2 is gonna win the Oscars, and it's gonna be that's all
yeah,
we're gonna see is these like uh Korean films, French films
mhm.
coming out that so yes, it is going to show us something other than Hollywood, American Hollywood.
Yeah, the market's gonna move away from, uh, people aren't making movies right now.
Yeah.
They're striking. So, yeah, the
Who's making
people
movies?
who's
People who
making
make
movies?
movies want to go where the
Bollywood
movie's making.
Bollywood's making movies.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
The
what was it?
Seoul in
Like last
Korea,
year, RRR was super popular
super
in America
popular.
because
Very
of
popular
for what reason?
because it's
Yeah,
over the top and wild.
yeah, because people wanted something fun and interesting, and movies probably, South American movies, European movies. I think we're gonna see a lot of it coming out, and Hollywood's gonna have to get their act together if they want to stay in the game.
I
Yeah,
don't think they stay in the game, if I'm being honest. I think they are. It's going to take generations to recover from the
Mhm.
damage that's not been done by this strike. been
Mhm.
done by themselves for the past 15 years.
Yeah.
Now,
I guess we Post Malone, the wise words of Post Malone, he had the right thing to say where he said Hollywood is bleeding.
right,
Mhm.
exactly. And he ran off to Utah, so maybe that.
Hemorrhaging, I would say.
Now, let me ask you to close this off. I'd like to give a recommendation and also get your guys' thoughts really quickly.
Yes.
Okay.
It may not happen just because of the nature of what we're saying with Hollywood is bleeding or hemorrhaging. So, um, Film Theory, the YouTube channel, put out
Mhm.
a video, I think today or yesterday, about Oppenheimer and how it's kind of like an allegory. It's a theory about how it's an allegory for the relationship between um, Chris Nolan and the movie studios, right?
Ooh, okay.
And actually, there was something like this back with Inception about him. The story of Inception is an allegory of his relationship with filmmaking. All right,
Okay.
and so he confirmed that Inception one was correct. So it's not far reaching that this is also correct. All right.
Okay.
Um, with that said, there's film. It's kind of it's there's enough evidence for there to be questions. But this is
Okay.
not. There's no article. This is mere rumors from this guy's video. You should watch it. At some point, there might be an interest and a potential future in Chris Nolan doing a Star Wars movie.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, let me say this with the concepts of he doesn't like visual effects, and what he says is he said the story in Star Wars is not the most important thing in his opinion when it comes to the Star Wars movies. It is the it is a story that aligns with technological innovation for filmmaking because that's what the original Star Wars was. It was
So
something we have
the
never
story
seen
was
before.
important as well.
The story was there,
Yeah.
but
But
the
it was pretty
interest
basic. It was an adventure
exactly.
story. Yeah.
So the interest around it was built on no one's ever seen this kind of technology before.
But the story has to continue to be an adventure story.
Exactly. So he
Yeah.
says, with that in mind, with his not liking visual effects or visual, he likes visual effects. He doesn't like uh, animation. He doesn't like
Mhm.
faking it. He likes
Yeah.
practical. So with that, and also that desire to want to be even more innovative in the world of Star Wars potentially, what do you guys think?
I think if it's not with Disney, I'm okay with it.
Disney has to drop Lucasfilms,
No
and
more
then
Disney involvement
No
with
more
Star
Disney.
Wars.
basically,
No more Disney.
what kind of is giving this life is because in an interview that he had, there was like these rapid fire questions when he was promoting Oppenheimer,
Mm.
and he was asked, "Would you make another superhero movie?" He said no. They asked him, I think, and another theory is that he's probably going to do a James Bond movie at some point because it's
Okay.
like his
That would be
favorite
cool.
story, and he models a lot of his stories around off of James Bond. So it wouldn't
Mhm.
be too far out there for him to do a James Bond movie,
He
but
kind of did with Tenet, but
a little bit. But he also said, so they asked him, "Would you ever make a Star Wars movie?" And instead of saying no or no comment, he just said pass. Like he doesn't want to answer the question. So it
Yeah.
kind of sounds like he might be in negotiations to see what are the realm of possibility for making a Star Wars movie. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It'd be kind of crazy.
Yeah.
It would
That
be
would be
interesting.
interesting.
I don't know. It might be a Star Wars movie that gets my interest for once. I'd have
maybe.
to pay attention. If he does one, I'd have to pay attention. I can't ignore that.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's Monday all weekend.
Yeah.
If you had any topics, if you have any thoughts on stuff that we talked about tonight with the strikes, with Toy Story trying to do a fifth movie, comment down below. Let us know what you guys think. And be looking forward to this Friday at noon. We will be coming out with our podcast. So be looking for that on Friday at noon. And I guess like this live stream, subscribe
Mhm.
to the channel, and we will see you next Monday on Monday all weekend.